So this morning's text is that sort of stood out to me was Numbers 22, the second part of verse 5 through verse 9. And I loved there was a quote this morning from in the devotional from Paulo Freire. He says, "To speak a true word is to transform the world." I love that idea. To speak a true word is to transform the world. And so the text this morning, Numbers 22, we have this person Balak who is part of the Moab, and he's fearing the Israelites. He's fearing that they have kind of come near, and he's heard of the ways that God has sort of worked powerfully through them to protect them and help them conquer. And so he's scared, and so he goes to Balaam. He goes to this other leader, and trying to ask Balaam to basically curse the Israelites. And so he's seeking Balaam's help in order to be protected from the Israelites. And there's this really interesting interaction here. So Balak sends messengers to Balaam at Pethor on the Euphrates in the land of Ammon to summon him, saying, "A people has come out of Egypt. They have spread over the face of the earth, and they have settled next to me. Come now, curse this people for me, since they are stronger than I. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land." So again, he's talking about the Israelites here. "For I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whomever you curse is cursed." So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees for divination in their hand, and they came to Balaam and gave him Balak's message. He said to them, "Stay here tonight, and I will bring back word to you, just as the Lord speaks to me." So the officials of Moab stayed with Balaam. God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" So there's a couple things that stood out. There's really a lot of interesting stuff behind this. If you notice that that part where they're speaking to Balaam, and he says, "I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whomever you curse is cursed." That's the promise that God offers to the Israelites, right? So there's some interesting irony there. But I think what stood out to me this morning was this idea that, here's Balaam, who is this official in Mesopotamia and living in Pethor, and in other words, like, Balaam is not an Israelite. He's not part of that. He's not a descendant of Abraham. He's not part of this, promise of God raising up the descendants of Abraham to be a blessing to the world. He's not part of the Abrahamic covenant people. And there's this interesting part in where he says, "Stay here tonight, and I will bring word back to you, just as the Lord speaks to me." And there's, in the Old Testament, there's lots of different, there's a few different words that can mean God or Lord. That we've got Adonai, Elohim, right? There's these different Hebrew words that in English we translate to Lord or God, and but the one that is always very specific to the God of Israel is this Yahweh, Yod Ha Beha, right? This there is no sort of confusion about which God or gods or which divine being is being referenced when in the Hebrew it's written Yahweh. And here Balaam says, "Stay here tonight, I'll bring back word to you, just as Yahweh speaks to me. Interesting, right? And so it's ironic because Balaam is seeking counsel from the God of the Israelites as to whether or not he should go and curse the Israelites. And I think it's interesting that here we have Balaam seeking counsel from Yahweh. And then if you look in verse 9, what's interesting, again, that sort of stood out to me is quite simply, God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" So first we have a non-Israelite seeking counsel from Yahweh. And then we have Yahweh going to Balaam and initiating conversation with him. And so I think just, if nothing else this morning, we can reflect on this story and acknowledge that the Lord, Yahweh, is the God who initiates conversation with surprising people in surprising ways. And so this morning, may we tune our ears, may we focus our eyes and quiet our hearts in order to wait for God's voice to surprise us today. May we be surprised by his voice. May we first hear God's true word in the vein of Paulo Freire's quote, "To speak a true word is to transform the world." May we first hear God's true word today. May it transform us. May we speak God's true word, and then may it transform the world. Amen.